So you've made it to the final interview stage with Singapore Airlines? I'm going to tell you the 7 most common questions asked during this stage of the interview, along with tips on how to answer them. Hello, how are you? I'm Romulo Gutierrez, and this is the Flight Deck Briefing Channel. I've been a recruiter for 28 years with extensive experience in international airlines, and I provide training for recruiters from over 35 airlines around the world. And I'm going to tell you right now the common questions in the Singapore Airlines interview. The first question is, what does the image of the Singapore girl represent to you? Keep in mind that the image of a Singapore Airlines flight attendant is completely different from the rest of the world. I'm not talking about a physical stereotype, I'm talking about the uniform, the personal presentation. It's much more than just a company, it's the flag of a country. It's the evolution of a country. It's a country that 40 years ago had various social and economic problems, and today it's a symbol of redemption. So when they ask, what does the image of the Singapore girl represent to you? You could say something like this as your answer. For me, the image of the Singapore girl represents much more than just a professional who provides in-flight service and ensures flight safety. Of course, that's important, but it represents the greatness of a country, the hospitality of a country that knows how to welcome people, and of an airline that welcomes its passengers like no other in the world. The elegance, which highlights the beauty of Singapore, but also demonstrates courteous service. And above all, something that is part of the culture of this company and the country itself, which is giving full attention to all people and all cultures. So, being a Singapore girl is something extremely important and carries a lot of responsibility, and I believe I'm ready for that. So, that's one possible answer. Of course, you don't have to copy my answer, that's not the point, but try to work in these points that I mentioned. It's a cultural symbol, it's the identity of a brand since 1972. It's the greatness, the hospitality, the elegance, and the full attention. This second question that will come up. Here we go. What is your top priority on board? If you were hired as a flight attendant for Singapore Airlines, what would be your top priority? Here, it's very important to frame your answer around a profile that, let's say, is standard across most airlines in the world, which is safety for the passengers, safety for the crew, followed by comfort and excellent service. Comfort and excellent service. So if they ask me that in an interview, I could say, I really like to use the technique of the first point, second point, third point, fourth point. It's interesting, I could say. My top priority, if hired as a cabin crew member for Singapore Airlines, would involve 4 aspects. First, safety for the passengers and for the crew. This is something non-negotiable for an employee, for a collaborator of Singapore Airlines. The second point is comfort. Comfort is extremely important, and a cabin crew member has to ensure it, in addition to excellent service. Those are the most important points. Before I move on to the third, and by the way, the fourth and fifth are the ones that cause the most rejections, so pay close attention. You know that the recruiter from Singapore Airlines or any other company, for any small mistake, you'll fail the interview or any other stage. And I've prepared a guide with the 50 fatal errors that get cabin crew members rejected all over the world, in all the world's airlines. The 50 errors. This ebook is in the first pinned comment, okay? At a very special, very low price for you, so you don't slip up and lose your spot. And here on the Flight Deck Briefing, the videos, twice a week, Monday and Wednesday, there's a new video here on the Flight Deck Briefing. The world of aviation and selection processes is here. I just need 2 things, and you'll be helping me. Subscribe, leave your like. And if you want to help me a little more, leave a comment, a question, because you'll be helping me a lot. Okay? Let's move on to the third question. The question is, what are your weaknesses and how can they affect your work as a cabin crew member at Singapore Airlines? What are your weaknesses and how can this affect your work at Singapore Airlines? My tip for an answer here involves 2 factors, 2 important pillars. First, self-awareness. Don't present yourself as a perfect person. Don't present yourself as someone without flaws. Of course, we have flaws and many weaknesses. Don't be ashamed to state them. You have to say the right things, and I'll tell you what they are. Okay? And the second point is an action plan. So I'll give a simple, very simple example. The job isn't requiring, for example, fluent Spanish. It's requiring basic Spanish, for example. Then I could say this. I could say a weakness is the Spanish language today. I'm at a still very beginner level. I haven't studied Spanish. But to improve this, the action plan to improve this, I downloaded an app on my phone to start with conversation and grammar in Spanish. And gradually, I've been improving. And soon, once I get the job as a cabin crew member, I'll be able to afford a good Spanish course and other languages that I also intend to develop. This is a weakness, which I don't believe will hinder me that much, but it's something I need to improve. That would be a good answer. Let's move on to the fourth question they'll ask you there. If you were a passenger on a Singapore Airlines flight, what would you observe most? They are trying to identify it. If you are an attentive person, if your perception of your surroundings works well, then to be a successful flight attendant, whether at Singapore Airlines or any other company, I would say that your radar, your antennas have to be switched on all the time with everything that is happening around you. And here, I'm going to give you 3 tips that are, look, fundamental to the answer. First of all, cleaning. Second one, silence. The third is the cabin crew member who anticipates the passenger's needs. So if you ask me that and I'm the candidate, remember, I'm not the candidate, I'm the recruiter who trains recruiters around the world. And I've worked for many airlines around the world doing this before. What would I answer if they asked me? If you were a passenger on Singapore Airlines, what would you pay most attention to? I can answer. I would observe 3 very important factors. Cleaning. It is considered one of the cleanest, most hygienic, and most perfect airplanes we have. So I would definitely verify if that's true. Second, silence. The welcoming atmosphere also involves a culture of silence, which is very strong in Singapore. We enjoy sharing this culture with our passengers, and I would observe that. And obviously, a cabin crew member attentive to needs in order to anticipate and serve in the best way. All passengers. That would be my answer. Shall we move on to the 5th? Question. Be careful with the 5th, 6th, and 7th ones that I'm going to bring up here. Before I move on, if you want the mentoring, the live and online kind, to practice your interview, your group dynamics, your personal presentation, or any stage you'll be participating in, whether with Singapore Airlines or any other airline in the world, the link is also in the first pinned comment. You'll click and you'll find the fly deck briefing there. Go to the website, choose the number of sessions you want, schedule the times, everything perfect. Make the payment through the Hotmart platform, which is 100% secure, operates in more than 100 countries worldwide, with clear refund policies. And then we'll meet to train you live and online for your stage, whether it's an interview or any other stage, with Singapore Airlines or any other company. It will be a pleasure to assist you. Let's move on to the 5th question. The 5th question is, why Singapore Airlines? Why do you want to work at Singapore Airlines? Why not another company? Here, it's very important to show that your personal values align with the airline, okay? So, for example, I could say that I'm a demanding person and I like to continuously improve. And that's who I am. I'm a person who always wants to get better. So if I'm in the Singapore Airlines interview, I can say, I chose Singapore Airlines because it has a concern that, for me, sets it apart from all other companies in Asia, the Middle East, Oceania, the Americas, and Europe. It's always looking for areas of improvement, and that's very appealing to me. For that reason, I chose Singapore Airlines, because I'm a person who is demanding of myself and always pushing myself. And I'll even give you an example. Recently, a 10, 15, 20-second example of something I improved. The answer becomes excellent. 6th question. Are you still with me? Are you with me up to the sixth question? If you are, write in the comments. I'm here, so I know you've made it to this point in the video. Sixth question, tell me about a mistake you've made. This question is very related to the culture of Singapore Airlines, which is the culture of humility and always striving for continuous improvement. You have to be humble, you have to continuously improve. I've already mentioned continuous improvement about 3 times. So tell them about a mistake you've made. Just try not to talk about a terrible mistake, a very complicated one. Talk about a simple mistake you made at your previous job. I could say, look, I live in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil, okay? I'm Brazilian, the son of Spanish parents. I could say, when I worked at the Hilton Hotel in Rio de Janeiro, at one point, I ended up swapping the luggage of one of the passengers, one of the guests, as he was going up to the hotel. And he had this problem of arriving and finding luggage that wasn't his. He got very angry. I apologized on behalf of the hotel. I offered him a courtesy at the restaurant so he could have a glass of wine on the house. I took responsibility with my management so that the passenger, the guest, would feel taken care of. And from then on, I never made that mistake again because I started to write down all the luggage belonging to each passenger. And that was a mistake I made, so humility and correction. Seventh question, if you saw a colleague neglecting their tasks, what would you do? Okay? And this involves the principles of silent leadership and cooperation. I would call the colleague over, ask him about the procedural error, and calmly teach him, depending on the error. I would tell him that I would need to report this to management, and I would maintain a good relationship, but above all, flight safety. Now, at Singapore Airlines, many times people often fail the group dynamic stage. In fact, these failures are covered in the 50 fatal mistakes. But I've left a video for you right here, so you won't fail the group dynamics. Go ahead and watch it. Wishing you excellent preparation. All the best, and until next time, bye.